Welcome to Potentials. This is Leja, and I want to welcome Brandon from Expanding Reality Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so appreciative. I love your content. I love your channel, and you're on YouTube, you're on Instagram, other places, but you're mainly Expanding Reality Podcast.com,
Uh,
correct?
yeah, we're kind of taking a break from the warehouse website, honestly. So
Oh,
YouTube, Instagram, anywhere podcasts are served, we're redoing it. So there is sort of an element of under construction going on right now. Like the Denver airport, right? We're not ready to unveil it yet, but it'll be out, pretty soon. But for now, you nailed it. The Instagram, anywhere podcasts are served. The show goes out audibly to like 40 something different hosting sites. We just found as many of the as we could and just dropped the RSS on all of them. So it's easier to find us. Also, Rockfin and Odyssey. So yeah, for those plugs as well. If you guys are in those places, we've got our shit there.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you very much. And how are you doing?
every day above ground is a phenomenal day. Thank you for asking. Yeah, they've been awesome lately. We actually a new rescue came into our life. Yokai. So we actually got a new pup here, and this is Yokai. We met her 4 days ago. She wandered onto our sister-in-law's porch and said, "Hey, I need a home." And so she's gotten all the shots and the vet stuff, and now she's wearing diapers because she's in heat. So we are just loving this little thing, and she is a delight. So this has been keeping us very, very busy, which has been awesome. And then amongst that as well, just publishing books, which has been wild. I started doing podcasts and talking about UFOs and stuff, and then now we're publishing books with our publishing house, Rediginal, and it's been incredible, and it's just been amazing. So that, along with the show, and just keeping definitely occupied. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's awesome. And how many books do you have now?
We actually have four in print now. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and 10, about six more on the way right behind that. So what
Oh
this
my
is a
God.
journal series, and it's actually, I have three of them here that I could show you guys. So our first one is mindful expansion, and we can get into all this kind of stuff. And then we have creative expansion, which is more of a sketchbook, but I'll show you what we did with that. And then we have a lined journal as well, introspective expansion, and this is all part of an expansion series. And then wisdom expansion will be right behind that. It's going to be the inversion of the first one, sort of a evening reflection, more than a morning get them going. And then also we have, I think, three different versions right behind this one of the creative expansion, and then another version right behind this. So volume two, and then two, three, and four right behind that. So it's a lot. We've been doing a
That,
lot of stuff with this. And it's
that's
just a
fan-
really cool series that just was built very organically, and it just kept growing, and it's been a very community oriented thing as well. And we can get into that, but it's been awesome. So that's what we've been doing, as well as my handbook, which I don't have. I left it in the studio over there. I created a handbook last year and a half ago for the show, and it's just called Expanding Reality, and you can just find it. And all of these on Amazon is the best place to get these right now. But we're going wider with distribution in some really cool ways, but we're just not ready to roll that out yet. But for now, Amazon for everything. But the handbook I created originally just as a way for a few reasons. One is a way for the audience to gain in participation. I'm a very tactile person. I like stuff. I like holding books. I like touching books. I like sketchbooks. I like writing and stuff like that. I'm very tactile. I'm a kid from the 80s. I'm in that weird generation where, there's a pocket of us that's very loves the stuff and the keys and the buttons and the knobs and the pages and things like that. And there's that, but we also have we're not too far removed from the digital age to where we can comprehend and appreciate both, right? And how they
yeah.
marry together. So this is a very digital creation, but it was all created analog because I hand drew all of the stuff in it. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
so I hand drew everything, but then transferred it digitally. And then that's a whole process thing with this architecture table that I've got. It was this whole amazing process just to get that done. But then you take it, you transfer it all digitally, you add your words that way because I'm not going to write all of that stuff like that. And so we also were able to get a lot of folks from the community to contribute in different ways. So we have very inspiring people in the Mindful Expansion journal series that's going to really help you and inspire you through that part. We also, in the introspective, which is more for writers, it's more geared to journals, writers, authors, things like that. We have authors and writers at the beginning of that as well, several different quotes, many contributors that give you some inspiration, give you some insights, give you some of their techniques, their practices, their wisdom. And then we cite everyone in there as well. And then in creative expansion, which is just a sketchbook, I say that it's just a sketchbook, but what we chose to do was to call in the community. And I know for your audio only audience, you guys check the video out, but also check out these online. We had this whole idea to, instead of just do a sketchbook, like just a bunch of blank pages, I said, why know so many amazing artists that why don't we just feature some of the artists up top? So we actually put a whole bunch of art in the beginning of your sketchbook so that you can actually be inspired as you go through this thing. And I know this is being held up on a camera on a phone, but this is one example. That's Erica Robin. She does some amazing things, and all these have been rendered in black and white, but it encourages you to go check them out. There's also a quote from each artist that participated, and there's about 42 pages in the beginning here where that's what this is art from other folks so that you can be inspired. There's also some coloring pages that Janine Burgess added to that, and you guys can do some coloring just ahead of you just going off in your sketches. Janine also did the cover for the first one, and she donated some art for this and her time and her quotes as well. We just have doodles also, my buddy Ryan, and Marisa. So there's a lot of incredible art in here ahead of just the sketchbook part of it. So if you'd like to find something creative, then we absolutely have that, as well as the lined version of this with all of the quotes. Like I said, hand drew the lined thing. So you actually have a few different things here. Rather than it just be a bunch of lines that I copy pasted from Canva, I hand drew all of this. And then it's got little, what we call nodes or constellations over here that you can utilize for dates. Like you can put the day there and the time and all that stuff. You can do a series. You have just little options. And then that spans both pages throughout the entire book. And then there's a second version of that coming out. So like I said, there's a lot to this. And this has been consuming a ton of my time, which has been great. Along with that, I've been thinking about time travel and aliens and what the hell's going on with the planet and all this kind of stuff, and then still doing a journal series. So it's kind of weird. And I was on Chris Matthews' show recently talking about this, that we still keep producing. He's an incredibly gifted everything that he does, but right now he's focused his talents on documentary filmmaking. And so he's been churning that out and just adapting and growing that evolutionarily as his process grows as well. And he and I were talking about this. Like, it feels like the world is like crumbling around us, and we feel like those violinists on the deck of the Titanic, just like, hey, look, we're putting new stuff out. Hey, look, you can still be creative as this just ship is crushing, around us and going to shit. We're like, hey, we're still making stuff. So it's wild.
Awesome. But it's an old empire that's crumbling and a new one we're starting. So this is our way of starting the new one. We're just sort of kickstarting it. So I love that. I think that's awesome. And it's, congratulations and thanks for sharing that. And so I had a few questions. Like one thing I was wondering is like how this all started for you. Like how did you begin with expanding reality? Like I remember just recently watching a show with you and Dave where you talked about going through a dark time a couple of years ago. Is that what started it, or was it like what's?
Yeah, so expanding reality specifically, that specific thing came about when 2020 hit and everything just sort of did its thing, and we got 2020 vision on what was going on, and the illusion started being peeled back a little bit. I was doing a podcast with my wife and two friends at the time, and we had a show called The Up and Atom Experiment, right? And it was fun. It was cool. We had about 50 episodes that we did, and that was it. And it farted and died. And that was all it was, because 2020 hit, and I was like, okay, I reformulated. I was ready to do UFOs. I had a bunch of lists for guests that I was just love these folks. And really, Coast to Coast AM is one of my biggest inspirations. That I'm a coast to coast like crazy. I mean, all the way back to the Art Bell days, I've just been in love with that whole way of getting information out. And I thought it was crazy cool that people would just get on air and talk about shit like this, right?
Right.
So with that, being inspired with that, I just had a bunch of authors, a bunch of researchers, a bunch of lecturers that I'd watched videos from and read books from. And so I had a big list going. And so when 2020 hit, and we started to come back and do some things and be normal, which we didn't shut down. And that's a whole nother conversation we can have. But we live in Texas, you live in Florida. There's a different freedom to what you and I experienced during that I don't think a lot of people can empathize with. And also my wife and I live out on 12 acres in the country in the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah.
It's just a level of didn't get affected by it like everybody else, right? So in all that time period, though, like I said, was reformulated. I'd already said, man, I want to change the name of the show. I want to, rebrand. I want to do all this. I'm ready to have this list of like 300 names. I can't wait to get these folks on. Whenever I invited everybody back, nobody wanted to do the show anymore. And I was like, okay, cool. They thought it was just a fad thing. And like you, though, I'd been bit by the bug, right? And
Yes.
it's just, I was like, no, I got to do this. So I just said, okay, well, I'm just going to rebrand and just actually start over completely. And so I did. So Expanding Reality was born out of that. And even the naming process, I was very um, adamant about it being reflective of where I am, which is expanding. It's the verb. It's not expand dead. We haven't done it already, right? And so it evolves. I evolve with the show as the show evolves. Now, from that, yeah, it's been dark times. The show it fooled me into thinking I could quit my job and all of these crazy awesome things. And so I did that. And so we've gone through several dark times, but they've always been complemented by these apex amazing times that would not have existed any other way. And so it's this fascinating fluctuation that makes you feel bipolar at times. But really, I feel that lately it's just about finding the balance within that, right? So that's how Expanding Reality started. It was an old show that we did. It then was rebranded into this whole thing about putting together conversations about UFOs and things more specifically geared toward the freaky woo-woo, as we call on the fringe topics. And then it evolved into this, the expansion of consciousness cleverly disguised as a podcast. And that's really what it feels like, is what the hell's going on here? And that's always been my stance. I have no clue what's going on. And I say that very adamantly because that's the only thing I'm very certain of.
Absolutely.
So that's what I like, is the conversations, and it's just about talking about the ideas. I think it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I really like your take on things. I feel like it's very similar to the way I also feel, and about things that, for example, saying that you don't really know, like not really having any strongly held beliefs about anything, just being open for whatever, to be possible. And
Yeah.
um, and also like how we even came here, that we chose this existence, that we chose our lives in advance and that kind of thing. I always find that very interesting to go down that path and think about that, So, I just, yeah, I like that. And so one of the things that I was wondering about too is the kind of lifestyle that you're living now. Did that just kind of organically happen? No pun intended.
Yeah.
Well,
And yes, indeed. Yeah, because it's follow inspiration and then adapt. And there's no plan for that. That is the plan. Follow inspiration and adapt. And so it's challenging to, what's that E.B. White quote? I wake up every morning determined to both change the world and have one hell of a good time. And that makes planning challenging, right? Or near impossible, I think, to finish the quote. But it's that idea. It's this idea that I'm following my greatest joy in every moment. And it's a very it organically came to be this organic, but it came from the structure of rigidity that I didn't feel comfortable in at all. And so I felt so not in my skin in that certainty, but the uncertainty feels pretty certain sometimes, which is a weird thing to say. And that was definitely organic. That's a lot of program smashing. That's not easy. And I still
yeah,
hesitate to embody it fully, but I can see glimpses of where I can grasp the idea enough to keep following it and to keep pulling on the thread. There have been some rabbit holes I've absolutely sealed up, closed, thrown a grenade in, said, I'm done with that, kind of things that led me. Allowed myself to be led in directions that weren't serving in the long run. I mean, inevitably, they were something that I needed to explore. Some of the spirituality rabbit holes, some of these manifestation rabbit holes, and things like that. And if it's something I just need more, I guess, more removed or disconnected, I guess, awareness or approach from, like more of an observational standpoint. But going all in on things like this, which is what you're required, is something I feel, to wrap it up here, is something that I feel was this just really interesting, again, rabbit hole that we all sort of invite ourselves into at some points. And it's religiosity at its core. And what's really interesting about it is how it felt to me is the spirituality, sort of that real wild element, the freaky woo woo type stuff. Because like we talked about, I don't experience that stuff. So I'd like to, I think it's cool. I'd like to see the magic here, like see a UFO, see some paranormal shit, see, I don't know, Archangel Michael or a guide or something go like, hey, take a left here instead of going right or something like that. But I just don't. I have no guides. I don't experience things like
Yeah.
that. I've not had a UFO experience. I think it's cool as a concept, but to me, that's all it is still. I feel that the people that tell those adventures of whatever they've experienced, whatever they feel they've experienced, it's either changed them or they significantly feel that by repeating the story, it is going to inevitably allow them to be free enough to be who they really are at whatever level that means. Who knows why, maybe somebody's contact case is actually a repressed memory of their uncle being inappropriate with them. And if you're constantly calling it a contact case and unwilling to look at it in a way that's responsible, is that healthy? Is that a coping mechanism? Or is it attaching to a community and an identity that serves you in the moment as a coping mechanism, but therefore, will never lead you inevitably to your truth? And so you're constantly looking at something, wishing it was something, but it's not. So again, and that's one tiny sliver of an example, but there are many like it in this way. And so my biggest takeaway from all of this stuff is there's some really cool, interesting things going on that people say are going on, and that you can find joy in the imagination of. But whenever it comes to allowing other things outside of you to navigate or to set your North Star for you, that is where I would say anything requiring you, first of all, to do that, absolutely walk away from, if that's in your best interest. But the other thing is just be mindful of those things. So that's it. It's just, I feel that this whole place lately has been revealing the illusion of itself, but what it's really revealing is the illusions you've been feeling about it and what you felt your role here was, what you felt your confidence and your power was all about. And so what it's reorganizing, though, is it smashes the illusion in the mirror and shows you the reality. And that sucks in two ways, because it shatters the illusion and then shows you reality at the same time. So you're dissolving a fantasy while being immersed in something that you created the fantasy to escape. So it's this fascinating, again, very psychological, not freaky woo woo at all. It's very psychological, but we can anthropomorphize and we can do the pareidolia thing and put our face on stuff, or put other faces on things that aren't that. And it's just interesting how we can convince ourselves what's, I guess, going on, what's right, what's going to yield the best results as far as what our experience here, what we want that to be, but most of us don't even know what we want that to be. And even when you get glimpses of it, may change. And so then you feel like this like lost thing, right? And then that's when you're grabbed by the people who tell you that they know what's going on. Again, it's a fascinating, almost circle jerk, if you will, a little loopy poo. But again, I would say to break the cycle is to just shut it all down, get a line journal, even if it's not ours, and write, and just get to know yourself really, really well. And that's, again, what this mindful expansion, not to plug these, but that's what this is. It was my journaling practice that I drew every single morning. And then I just decided to not draw it every morning and just draw it, once or a couple of great times, and then repeat that process so that I could utilize it every day without needing to go that deep into it. But it's from withdrawing from other people's ideal of what healing meant, or the fact that I needed to fucking be healing constantly. Like, at what point do you, are you like healed? Or at what point are you able to at least take the knowledge you have, say that's good enough, and keep moving? Like, when do you give yourself permission to do that, right? So anyway,
Right.
it's a wild world we live in, full of all this crazy stuff going on with a lot of masks. And
Right.
what's, I think, being revealed is not only the masks around you, but the masks you've been wearing as well.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
wild time.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's sort of like everything. If you feel like everything is an illusion, how do you know what's real? How do you know what's true? Um, you start to, like, I was reading books like The Holographic Universe and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and about fractal theories, and I'm like, okay, so if we're living inside of a hologram, how do I know what's really real? Is there any realness to anything? Is there truth to anything? And so the only truth you have is your own inner self and your own inner standing, which I hate that word because everybody uses it now, but you know
I
what I
like
mean?
it, and I'll tell you why. I'm not a fan of how weird it sounds to us, and I agree with you phonetically that it's uncomfortable because it sounds weird. And then every time you try and type it to someone, it autocorrects and says, "Did you mean something other than what this non-word is?" Yeah, I get it.
I
But
love
what I
the
will
word,
say,
but people are using it too much and it's now lost its, meanings, so, sort of, you know what I mean?
why I'll still continue is because the opposite of it means detriment. The understanding, standing under somebody, because I've been
Right.
doing a lot of research into this state national and getting out of the corporate America and unsubscribing from that and the
Yeah.
language used in the courts and things like this. And so understanding is to stand under, and that's a Jordan Maxwell thing. So Jordan Maxwell has my heart. I had him on the show. I want to say I was his last interview. He passed away exactly 1 month to the day after we recorded it. But that dude was a huge influence on me, for the longest time. Like since my eyes were open, that guy was part of the reason they were.
Yeah.
And so that's one of his things is that really he hammered the understanding. You don't stand under anyone. And so I
Right.
agree with you though, understanding is kind of lame, to a degree, because yes, it's overused. And also it's kind of weird phonetically. So maybe perhaps you and I can come up with something better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know I'll have to think about that one.
You could just acknowledge, maybe even just changing
Yeah.
it from understand to acknowledge. I acknowledge, I
Yeah.
acknowledge that, or I see that, something like
I
that.
feel that. I feel that
I feel
maybe.
that. Yeah.
I
I'm
say
smelling
that
what
all
you're
the
stepping
time.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
Right.
like that. There you go.
Yeah, I do say that a lot. But yeah, so how do you know what's really real and do you just go by intuition? Because that's kind of what I do, but I don't know.
Ugh, absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Because I've done that a bunch and it led me to a bunch of crazy shit that I had no idea what was going on. So I don't know what intuition is. I don't know. You're catching me at this fascinating time to have this conversation, to be completely honest with you.
That's
The
good.
dude that did the show, it is great. The dude that did the show up to that point had some understandings and acknowledgments about himself that he felt was so damn right and so true. And since then, there's just been this reality that came in and said that's not the case. Now, the world before this was so certain. It was so absolutely. It was goal oriented. It had motivations. It had drive towards a specific community and towards a specific ideal. And it was motivated by that. But then all of a sudden, all the lights got turned off all at once. And I don't know why. And from out of nowhere. And it was recent as shit. This is a month ago, and I canceled like a bunch of shows. I'm still gonna go through a list. I haven't yet. I hadn't recorded an episode in almost 2 months. This is the second conversation I've had on camera since that time. And so
Wow,
again,
I'm
you're
honored.
catching me at well, you're great, and of course, but of course I'd come on with you. The this whole weird shift changed the way that I look at things like these topics and philosophies that we throw around as if they're correct, that everyone can just kind of hear and go, yeah, I like that idea. And so I'm also going to put hope and energy towards that idea. And I've looked at it at this as the same tool in which we are rocked off of our center from, let's say, the lizard turds that are perhaps running this place, right? So in my mind, it seems like that there are inverse energies that are operating on the same level to get you to do the same thing, which is to offer yourself, your energy or whatever over to a system. And it's that part of it that I've kind of cracked the code on. It's this idea that, of course, love and light is bullshit. And we all know that. Like, you can't be love and light all the time. It's a silly concept. And I get that it'd be nice, but we don't live in that place. And if that's a place that does exist, we're not here and that's not this. So I don't know what to tell anybody who's like hopelessly attached to that idea, because I've always found that idea appealing, but never felt that it was reality for me. And the closer I got to the thought that it could be a reality for me, the more disillusioned I was about the identity that got me there. So the interesting part about this as well is you will shed the layers of you naturally. You'll do this in the woods by yourself, living with no one, with no sort of religion to look at and study. Nature becomes your religion, and you can see everything, and then that's your reality. But if you're looking around at like a TV all day or swiping on your phone all day or something like that, then that's your reality. And whatever that is created for you, then that's right. So this
Right.
idea of tamper or meddling, right? Something meddling with your choices, meddling with your ability to see clearly. And that bugs the shit out of me, right? If there's the way to, you muddy the water rather than show you how shallow it is. And so it's so that you can stand up. And that's what I've been seeing is just stand the fuck up, people. It's cloudy and muddy under there so that you don't realize again how shallow it is and how powerful you are to stand up. Now, I don't know what that means as far as like to stand up, because what I did was I just shut everything off. I just told everything to fuck off, in like the nicest way possible. But it was also this idea of dissolving the things that I felt I was working towards were available for me. Does that make sense? 'Cause I know
Yeah.
that's a little wordy. Okay. I had this like realization that some of the things that I was super motivated by are just religion with extra steps. And whenever I got to there, I got to this void and it dropped me. It tanked me on this fascinating level of like, okay, we made it through the conspiracy shit. Okay, we made it through the education shit. Okay, we made it through the religion shit. Oh, wow. There's actually something here that can guide us in a nice direction and that we can empathize with and that we can put energy in and get great results, which is building an amazing community with like-minded ideals. At the end of the day, I find for me that it seemed like, again, religion with extra steps. So it seems like I was offered a path that was so far outside of what I knew I didn't identify with that it became so appealing that that's the direction I went in hardcore. And then when you get to the finer points of this, to where the nuances about your psychology and about mechanistic reality then go down to the word faith, and that you just need to know and trust in faith. And that's where my issue is. That's where I walked away from religion. This is where I walked away from the politicians that will lie to you. This is where I walked away from, all of that stuff. So I'm at this fascinating point where I don't know what the hell's going on again. And in a more burned way, though, in a way to where my ego has a problem with it. I got hit hard in the pride with this. I really did. I was like, how dare you let yourself fucking do this, right? But you
Thank
know
you.
what? It's fine. And I feel better and I feel less bamboozleable, which I feel was the ultimate thing. And I
I
feel
like
great
that word.
about that.
I said hoodwinked yesterday, but I like bamboozled better. I think that's even better.
I like Bamboozled. Hoodwinked is fun. Have you ever seen that movie? By the way, very hard side trail. Okay, there's an old movie. Patrick Warburton played one of the voices of the characters. It's animated. It had a little squirrel in it. He pronounced dynamite dynamite. I remember it was hilarious. And it's just this silly ass Wonderland movie called Hoodwinked. And it's a lot of fun if you just want to check it out as a
Okay,
nothing box.
I will have to check that out now because I used it yesterday, so there's obviously a reason for that. Um,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any coincidences, but the one thing that I do, okay, so not having any by not having any belief systems, maybe you're having a belief system. Can you really escape from having a belief system? I mean,
this
because
is, God, what a great question.
we're so human and we're programmed a certain way, sort of, I think. I don't know.
So, what's belief, right? Belief is a thought you keep thinking.
Yes,
So, if you keep thinking that your reality is malleable by the way that you see it, then that is true for you. If you keep thinking that you'd like for your reality to be malleable, but you don't see it that way, then it is true. That's also true for you. The idea that you'd like for it to be, but it's not. So
right.
that this again fascinating sort of it's a you know what it is, it's a paradox, and that's what this goddamn reality is. It's a
It's a
bunch of
paradox.
paradoxes wrapped up into each other, and we're supposed to act like everything's okay and nothing's going on.
Yeah,
That's the issue here. It's
yeah.
not. It's not okay, and there is something going on, and it's because this place is riddled with fucking paradoxes. So again, this idea that this is available easy, and that also, because a lot of it requires and does require participation from others. And what's fascinating about that is that's where it becomes a religion. Now, before it's just a belief. Like, let's say you see the number 1212 everywhere, or the number 47 everywhere. For you, you believe that that number is significant to you because you see it everywhere. Probably nobody else sees that, and nobody else looks at it that way, but it's significant for you. Therefore, you believe because it's a thought that you keep thinking. Or same thing with your confidence. You believe that you have your belief in your low confidence is only fueled by the fact that you feel that you're not confident, right? So it's this perpetual cycle in
You are
one
what you
term or
think
another.
in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in any way, so what's fascinating about that is, and yes, it's all beliefs, because all, again, a belief is really just a thought you keep thinking. And if you keep thinking, if I fall off a cliff, I'll die, then you can't fly. But who's to say that you could fly if you couldn't think that? But the programming is so strong that we don't just take up off the ground. And this would be a fascinating study in program. Like, what does that look like when you remove the programming from a child as they're growing up, and you remove trauma from the experience, right? Which is what's so necessary for the kind of world that we have and the kind of leaders, air quotes, that we have, is trauma in children. And
Right.
so if you were to alleviate that, what would that world look like, right? Maybe they can fly because nobody's ever told them they couldn't. Maybe there's some crazy interesting superpowers in there that is void of limits because limitation is the only thing that you really have. Now, again, I think that I'm far too programmed to see that as a reality for me. But I can see where limitations being absolved in a person would reveal supernatural abilities. And you can see this in moms that pick a car up off their kid or something like that, when a horrible incident happens. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way she could have done it. There was just nothing else in her mind that said that she couldn't. It was that baby needs to go, that's on top, done. So like, what's the limit to that? What does that look like? And then you say, well, why did that exist? Is it a hypersensitivity state? Was there just an amazing amount of adrenaline running, which made this superpower effect? But that doesn't change the fact that your bone will snap under a certain amount of pressure, and that car weighs 3 times what would do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what allows this realm to be superimposed with some very unique things at interesting times? Now, I've never seen a mom do that. I've heard that moms can do that and that people lift cars off of people.
Yeah.
But again, is that just a psyop? So then really the belief I'm sort of at, and I'll be honest with you here, it's not fun. It sucks. It's that what I can see is real for me. And that's it. I don't, I take the opinions of others. I think it's fascinating. I take the observations of others. I think that's awesome. But I've had too many experiences where like somebody told me a movie was horrible. And then I went
Right.
and saw it and loved it. I'm like, the
Yes.
hell were they talking about? Why would I have avoided that? Now, if you think that on such an innocuous type of an item like a movie reference, but scale that up to like your life choices, to your health choices,
Right.
to your decision-making ability. And that's an interesting thing when you even are able to negate those type of things on a bare level just to fit in with somebody else and not feel like you need to be called stupid or something like that because you don't have the confidence to really just be yourself. And so again, it's this interesting crab in a bucket situation to where not only are you pulled down by your own limitations, but you're also pulled down by this feeling or this desire to be a part of a tribe and not ostracized. That exile was worse than death to most people in the ancient cultures and still is probably. Exile is horrible because it's you spending time outside of this interaction with humans and people and one of you after you've had it for so long. And so that taking that away, it'll just rob you of your spirit and your will to live. It's fascinating. Or you've had too damn much of it. You just run the hell off in the woods to get the hell away from it. There's that too.
Right.
Which have a lot of examples, a lot of paradoxes here. And so that's what's so fascinating. So if I don't see it, I'm really one of these like I gotta see it. I think it's fascinating. Like I think it's cool as shit. I want aliens to be real. I want all that stuff, but I don't have beliefs about or certainty about it one way or another. I've never seen it, so I don't know.
Right. I feel like for me, my mind is open for anything to be possible, but that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that I'm not like ruling it out, but I'm not saying it's definitely true. That's kind of where I'm at, with
absolutely.
everything. So yeah, and I don't. I like having an open mind because I feel it's like Christmas every day because I get shown things. I get gifts all the time. Like, oh, here you go. Your mind is open. Here, try this on. So I get to try it on and see if I like it, and if I don't like it, maybe not so much.
How long would you say that it's been since you've seen what you've seen, the world the way you've seen it?
a long time.
Yeah.
I've just always been weird. I
Okay.
was the weird
Good.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Good. Weird's
I didn't
awesome.
really care about whether people liked me or not. I spent a lot of
Hmm.
time alone. I don't know. I was just the weird child. So yeah, I don't know. But I just I was programmed. I have to say that, I grew up with a, semi-religious family. I mean, they weren't like they lived what they believed, I have to say. They did live it, and they weren't super strict and mean about it and overbearing, but I did have programming, and like everybody does,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course you grow up with TV and media and whatever. So you certain thoughts come into you whether you want them in there or not. But I still had those other ones that were on the fringe. I was always the fringe thinker. And so that's sort of, I guess, why I never really closed my mind completely to things.
Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think about disclosure and stuff going on right now? About all the governments going, yeah, aliens are real, and about Mexican government propping up those paper mache things. What do you think about all that?
Yeah. I I am not sure what their what's their like why are you doing that? Like I'm not sure what the intent is behind it. I'm
That's the
sort of,
question, right?
yeah. I don't know what's going on with that. So yeah. I mean,
What do you think
whatever.
about it though? Whenever you see that in the news, or if you've looked at it as at a big picture, you see the way it's being rolled out. What do you think that their idea is for us to receive the information? Like, do you have a thought on it? I'm just curious where your mind is on it.
Um, in general, I mean, if it's the government doing it, some kind of control, in
Yeah,
some
right.
way, obviously. But other than that, I don't know what their real plan is, and what they're trying to roll out or not roll out. Um, yeah, it's up in the air for me. I
Yeah.
just kind of go with the flow, and I don't have any plans. You know what I mean? I don't think, oh, I'm gonna do this or that if this happens. I just go with the flow and feel what I. Okay, we're back on.
It's wild, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. So,
Hmm.
okay, so we were talking about, what the disclosure, sort of disclosure.
Yeah. Talk about aliens, how weird it is how they talk about it, and then we got shut down.
Yeah.
How wild. So that means we're on the right track, right? Yeah.
Obviously.
So I'm just curious, do you think aliens are a thing or do you think that they're a story made up?
There's so many people that have had, you know, if it's a story, it's a really uh convincing one to me, but I mean, I don't know. I haven't had an actual encounter, with one, so I don't know.
What's your thought on that the government really has maybe a deal with these things where they are these things themselves that are just posed as human beings? And so that's what's really going on. Is it it's
Oh,
just some sort of
a
ant farm,
psyop
really.
or something.
Yeah.
I feel like there are some out there that are like that they are actually not real and they're just people dressed up like them, or they're whatever. But I feel like there could be some that are actual otherworld beings, you know. There could be otherworld beings that are here, and but I don't feel like they allow themselves to get caught.
Mm.
If they exist, they would be such a higher level that they, you know, they would have abilities that supersede what we can do. You know, it's
See,
like the
that would
difference
be
between us and an ant. You know, if it's really a fractal universe, then you know there could be beings that are so huge we can't even see them.
if it's really a fractal universe. I
Yes,
think it's interesting too that because this whole idea presupposes that there's some force out there that we should be scared of, right? Or that can at least apprehend us at a moment's notice and there's nothing we can do about it. And so that's a pretty handy
right,
component to our reality to have floating around in the back of your mind if,
right.
that were to be staged in a way, right? I
Yeah,
think it's interesting, and I've started looking at this place real long game, more long term than the immediate things thrown at us right in the face, and then like, oh, what's here, and oh, how's it connected? You can be thrown a ball of yarn, and that can keep you busy for a minute, right? But you miss like this big tapestry that you're macrameing in, or whatever. To stick with the metaphor, but it's
mm,
interesting to look at this as sort of like a when because even you do it, I mean we all do it now to a degree, but it seems like very interesting to look at whenever we're given a story or a piece of information, air quotes, from media or from anything about what's going on in the world and what they feel we should know about and all that kind of stuff. It's just interesting to sort of look at it like as far as just another piece in a puzzle to stair step you into something else, to stair step you into something else. And whenever I look back at the UFO history and you start looking at the way it was reported, the way it's been seen, the way that even over ancestral time, which we also can't prove, we were just given a story, right? Because even a lot of the history that we're looking at, his story is just that. So
right,
even unraveling it all the way back, you don't really have foundations to build on that you know of. You have foundations that they built for you to say, here's where this leads us. And because of that, therefore we must this, right? And so it's
right.
down to like even the structure of this reality in a sense of that really the story has either been manufactured over the last 100 or so years,
Mhm.
well out of our generational time gap, to where you could really plant the seed of a new generation and then tell them any damn thing you want about the reality, about this place, what they are, about any of it. One of the more telling things about the, I guess, UFO contact that is reported is this idea of hybridization, right? This idea of genetic material being taken and then them needing it to create more of something, needing us, which means that we're some sort of resource. And I think there's a lot to that. When we
Mm.
really look back at the UFO phenomena as far as energetic, genetic material, all of these things, like what the hell is this? And I don't know if you want to look at it at a certain light, it would be interesting for a government, let's say, to have psychotropic drugs involved to where they can convince you that basically they're anything that you want, maybe through some series of fog machines and elaborate costumes and lights or something, and then just drugs, and maybe they just trip everybody out and then make them believe these stories and do this dozens and dozens if not hundreds of times in very interesting and isolated ways, and then you plant these stories all over the place. I think it's either that or aliens, right? I just think that there's so much more going on here as far as the distrust with this reality, especially with these things called aliens or these beings, because
Mhm.
a lot of folks are like, oh, well, they don't want us jacking with nuclear power, nuclear weapons, but then you find all of these examples of nuclear powered ships and things like that, like all this weird information that's just again a paradox. It seems that a lot of this info and the realities and the yarns that are spun are just paradoxical in nature, and they lead you back to way more of a whirlpool of information to get lost in rather than this true divine north of where to go based on your compass. But that's what's so fascinating about this. I feel that none of this is real information. I feel these are whirlpools that you can just get stuck in along your journey. And your journey
Right.
is whatever whirlpool you want to get stuck in. So it's a fascinating thing, right?
Yeah, that is interesting. I was you mentioned psychotropics. I've never done any kind of psychedelics. I know that's kind of strange because everybody I know has. but I just never felt like I needed to.
Yeah, they're not for everybody. Yeah.
And I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I see things differently anyway, like just
Yeah.
naturally. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I'm curious about it. Is it something that you feel like somebody should do just to open up a little bit, or is it something that can actually control your mind, or they can use to control your mind, or are
And this
organic better than chemical ones? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. It's these are great questions. And you have all the great questions, and I'm doing my best not to give you like a freaky woo-woo answer here. The best answer I can give you on that is if you're called to, then there's a reason for that. I think that you are like, let's say for instance you have a craving for a certain food, then maybe your body is lacking in that. It was
Right.
something that food provides. So it
Yeah.
seems that maybe on a level, maybe psychologically, maybe spiritually, if you want to call it that, then you are being called to nurture some nutrient in you that's not accessible other than that way. So maybe it's
Mm,
something to look into. I would recommend, if I can, to stick organic, for sure.
yes, that's
I would say
absolutely. Yeah.
just mushrooms, for a little bit. Smoked DMT is pretty
Microdosing?
intense. Hmm?
Microdosing at first, or just going
Uh,
straight into it,
I
balls
am
to the
no
wall?
doctor and I will not recommend any of that kind of stuff. But what I will say is that's going to be a personal call up to you and the person you trust to make that decision. But you and I
Right.
can speak off camera about some options of some people that I have trust in for you to make a decision for yourself on, that I'm not affiliated with in any sort of way to influence that decision. But other than my ability to discern character. And so I have some options for you. Absolutely. But I would say also, go easy, go light. I don't know that I
Mm,
would do acid again. I did it in my 20s and it was phenomenal, but man, it was hard on me. It was just a beat down physically and mentally, you're just tired. But I
yeah.
would say yeah, just some mushrooms would be fun. I mean, they're around here for a reason. It's fascinating too when you get into the concept of that to think that they're an entity themselves and that they
Yes.
apprehend your consciousness in the same way that one would say like a demon does, but they sort of do it in a nice way, in a cool way that actually benefits you, which is fascinating. So to think of things like that is that there are allies out here, because I know that it
Mm,
seems that there's a lot of doom and gloom and that there's a lot of shitty things here, which that is also the case. But it
yes.
doesn't all suck, and there are some cool stuff here. And if nothing else, if this is a prison planet and that's what's going on, then there are mushrooms here, and you can do mushrooms while you're waiting out your sentence.
I don't want to look at it like a prison planet. I don't feel like it is for me, at least anyway. My experience here has been I really love nature. So I like to
Yeah,
be around
yeah,
it as much as possible, and that makes me feel free. So I just go
yeah.
places where I feel free, and then I don't feel like I'm in a prison. And I try to make whatever I have to do during the day like fun. So if I make it fun, then it's sort of like Life is Beautiful with Roberto Bernini, where he was in
Mm-hmm.
concentration camp, but he was making it fun for his kid. Maybe that's what it is.
Again, you're catching me at a very interesting time. It's where I've been to the void and it sucked, and so I saw the alternative to the void was sort of this environment in which we created our own stories and we had this little place to do whatever the hell we wanted as a means of not going insane because there's nothing else going on. And that's
Right.
terrifying to me that this is it, and that you're making it all up as a way of not going insane. But even the thought of that, like that I could even, if that's the case, get that close to that realization scares the shit out of me, that you can even be that close to being aware that that's what's going on. That
Mm,
sucks. And you
yeah.
do find this in some really deep psychedelic experiences. So the void is this idea, and it's very real, and it sucks. And what it is nothing. It's nothing. And what's worse is it's more than nothing in the way that not only is it nothing, you're aware how fake this is because
Mhm.
there's nothing. It's the darker side of this when you start exploring these kind of concepts and you start looking at stuff, you're like, oh, well, this is cool and this is fun and aliens and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah. Eventually, though, and again, a lot of people, I've had many conversations with this about folks that in the psychedelic realm about experiencing on heavy doses of ayahuasca, especially this void, and it
Mhm.
literally tells you, hey, this is it. This is really what reality is, and everything else you're making up and you're dreaming all of it, and like your family doesn't exist, your friends don't exist, your dogs don't exist, you don't exist. This is just a
Right.
projection from your mind. And that,
Hmm.
I don't know, some people are okay with that. I think it still kind of fucks with me mentally, if I'm honest
Hmm.
with you.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
like we're being sort of cheated in a weird way by ourselves, and it's almost a worse betrayal, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you'd rather it be some politician that you can be like, oh, that person's lying to me. But when it's you bullshitting yourself through reality and giving yourself lizard turds to be pissed off at as a means to not go insane, then it
Yeah.
changes the tune a little bit.
And it's like so it's really all your own movie that you're making your own movie as it goes, you
Think
know.
about think about the idea that if this is an infinite reality where there are infinite choices and you are this infinite consciousness that knows everything, then you would know this. Like you've done this before. Like
Right.
the fact that we forget, I don't feel as a I feel let me be clear that I'm just playing with ideas here. And
Hmm.
so I'd say that the feeling is, yes, it's a lot of possibilities in there, but
Mm.
it feels more like sort of this uh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where to take it from there. It's just this interesting place to where it just uh I don't know. I haven't formulated the ideas to where I'd like to talk on it past that, I suppose. But it's just a weird mind fuck when you start diving into the philosophies of just this place, existence, all of those things, like being inherently meaningless and then coming to like that it's the meaning that you give it. But what if the meaning that you gave it was the discovery of the meaning of life? And then you were just told that actually it's the meaning you give it, dude. So, like, what is that about? Again, it's these paradoxes. But then the journey itself was the discovery, which was actually the, I guess, destination itself was the journey, right? And so, again, this idea that you forget when you come in here
Yeah.
for an infinite being, if you follow that philosophy, then it's so that you can watch the movie for the first time, right? Because
Yeah.
everything's already happened. So therefore, all the
Right.
tragedies, all the everything already happens, will always continue to happen, and all of that. But
Mm.
you forget as a way to enjoy the movie again. You know what I mean? As to be surprised because you already
Right.
know everything. So then, where's free will in that? Right? Do you
Right.
have the illusion of free will? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or is the
Right.
fact
Right.
that you're a god that forgot to what that then you get to watch the movie again? That's what is called free will, but really it's just for deliberately forgetting.
Yes. That is an interesting way of looking at it. And there's an infinite amount of movies,
Right.
because
Allegedly. Yeah.
yeah, I
And then
mean
this
that's
idea of this parallel universe to where
yeah,
if you make this decision, one of you goes
right.
that way, one of you goes that way. Like what a
Right.
mind fuck if you think about that from a like
Yeah.
why would you want to experience that? Now I'm very aware of my limited perspective, but like
Yeah.
to split that many things in that many directions and to make it that complex. Again, I'm very limited in my thought on this, but it seems a little unnecessary. You know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just follow the conscious? Is there a conscious path and then an everything path, right? An
Yeah.
infinite possibilities path and then one that you take, and then
Hmm.
do you start over at the beginning and then make a slightly different decision? Do you wear that shirt rather than this shirt that time at this point? And that your life is just this crazy Groundhog Day loop thing.
Well, I think it's because it's hard to think outside of time, you know.
Right. Because you're
So
in it.
because we're in time, so how do we think
Yeah.
about all of this outside of time? And it's just that's part of the mind fuck, really,
Yeah,
is
it's like
being
a fish thinking about water. It's like you're in it.
yeah,
Like you don't
yeah.
they don't see anything outside of it. It's wild. But what about flying fish? You know what I mean? They know that there's a world outside of that.
What about birds who also
Yeah.
swim? Birds that can swim
Yeah.
and also be on land. They're multidimensional.
This is a wild conversation and I love it.
It is. I'll go anywhere. I'll take
Tara.
any route. I'm open for it. So yes, I love it.
Hell yeah.
So I wasn't expecting to go down any of those roads, but I'm
Me neither.
glad I was
Yeah.
thinking about, well, let's talk about your farm and
Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's still here.
electroculture and and all that
All
stuff.
those. Yeah, yeah, we've got yeah, we can absolutely. Did you have any questions or anything about that?
Well, yeah, like what are you doing
on your farm? What is the cool stuff that happens that is different, unique? You know, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we bought the place about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago, and love it. We've got into goat farming, and we've had oodles of goats since then. We've turned into just a rescue ranch, really.
Mm,
We just really have yard art, as we call it. We don't slaughter the animals for food. We do other things for that, but we have basically just a bunch of animals that can live their lives out in a rescue type situation. Right now, we're currently housing 6 donkeys. We have 2 dogs. You met Yokai earlier, 3 cats, and then us. And so we have a bunch of chickens and stuff too.
hmm.
So it's an amazing piece of property. We have 12 acres, 10 where the animals live, and we have a pond and all this great stuff. And you can just do anything you want out here, which is so cool. You don't need permits. You don't need to do anything. I built a barn, built a coop, built all this stuff. We tear buildings down if we don't like it. Shoot
Huh.
guns if you want to. Like, it's the freest
Wow.
damn environment I've ever been in. Yeah, I can with you on the phone right now. Go pop a couple rounds off if you want right here in my front yard. Totally cool.
Sounds like
They
fun.
Yeah, and I mean, and you may hear, it's hunting. We've been hearing a lot of shots out here in the morning because that's just what happens. So it's a
Right.
different lifestyle. We don't get delivery food out here, which is fine. We haven't got delivery Chinese or pizza in 8 years, and we're totally cool with that.
Yeah.
We get to see the Milky Way at night. We get peace and quiet. We get to do
Mhm.
whatever the hell we want. And the nature out here, like you said, we're big nature whores as well. And so
Yeah.
we have a big labyrinth that we mowed back here, let everything grow up. So all the pollinators came through, and then I just mowed a strip through it. And it's about 1,300 steps in and out. And it's a labyrinth. You just walk in, go to the center, walk out. We walk it dozens of times a day, dozens, barefoot. I'm always barefoot. You can see with my black
Awesome.
feet.
Yeah, me
And
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Florida.
And so it's nature, I mean, August sucked. August, late July and August, no rain and over 100-degree, temperatures for well over 50 days, something like that, and 40 something days. And it just sucks. Yeah, it blows. But when it's not doing that, it's actually really, really nice. Yeah.
Oh
There are
yeah.
brief windows of amazingness, mostly where we are in Texas, and for I think a good part of Texas, it's summer, a little bit of spring, a little bit of fall, and then a shitty winter because we're in I guess the
The northern.
plains. So we get a lot of the stuff that just kicks down from the plains, uninhibited by mountain ranges or anything like that across Nebraska and Kansas, Oklahoma, all that. So we get these crazy winters, and even people like up in Alaska will come and defend our um, whininess of our Texas winters here. And they'll be like, dude, I'm from Alaska, and this winter the weather here is different. There's something to the
Ah,
humidity or something like that where it just sucks. So anyway, it's a weird, weird place, but it's beautiful a lot of the time, and we love it.
yeah.
Hmm.
That's so when you do you eat meat? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
don't? Okay, okay.
Yeah, we just don't eat the stuff we have out here. We have donkeys, so we're not
Right.
slaughtering donkeys to eat. The
No.
other stuff was like goats, for instance. We had some goats that were the smaller pygmy type goats. So they were more of like the show goats of this stuff. So they were, a third the size of a meat goat, and they were 3 times the value. So really, you don't get these to um, eat them. You get them as like pets and stuff like that. And so that was much more what we were interested in, as
I love
somebody would spend $200 on a 80-pound goat rather than $75 on a 300-pound goat. You know what they're going to do
yeah.
with it generally. So we just decided that rather than be like a meat farm, we were a rescue ranch. And then we also sold some animals to really great homes. We sold a goat to a lady that double confirmed what we named the goat, which was just a name. Like, I was like, oh, we call him Henry, but you can call him whatever you want. And then she had his name monogrammed on a collar when she got here. And that's the kind of people that we, got to send our animals away with. And so
Oh,
it's an awesome, awesome thing. We've had peacocks out here. We've had a pig. We've had horses, mini horse, big horse, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's been
that's so,
amazing.
yeah, that's awesome. And then you do like you were doing your own like you have your own electricity or
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a co-op is what it's called. Now we do pay for a private trash service to come pick up our trash right out
Mhm.
here, and then we are on a co-op water as well. We don't have well, but it is a water, but co-op water.
Mhm.
But then also we have a septic. So yeah, we're not tied into sewage or anything like that.
So you're kind of like a little bit off grid, really.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we're still again tied into water and power. We haven't ran any sort of water collection, and we didn't get into solar. Didn't find it valuable for what was available to us at the time. And there's a bunch of markets out here going Texas Solar, Texas Solar. A lot of it, even the people I know who are in solars, they never get that. It's such a racket. So as far, yeah, it's just not scalable right now, is what I've heard from where I'm at, from the sources I've talked to, and I've talked to many. But yeah, apparently it's a racket. Another racket.
Okay. So what about electroculture? Do you try that? Doing that with your own?
We have not. So we set up an area for a garden, but we haven't made it that far. We've been mostly animal rescue focused. So as far as cultivating our own food and turning this into more of a sustainable place, we've not ventured down. But we do have a beehive ready for bees. We just hadn't made that step yet, as well as a garden fenced off, ready. So all the infrastructure stuff is there, just as far as the pulling the trigger and doing it. Also, some old buildings, a lot of dismantling of old things to get to the things that we need to get to. Some old buildings that were out here. We took down an old greenhouse. It takes, multiple weekends for us to do that, to get all of that material up and then cut up and hauled off. That in itself is a massive project. That was pretty much most of our growing season, was just dismantling old buildings just to get to them, to set up infrastructure for the building that we will build that will be near the garden. So yeah.
So eventually you're planning to do that, but you're working. Yeah, it takes time, really.
Yeah. Time,
of
cash, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear that, that you're doing the animal rescue. I really love that. I think that's awesome. So
it's been so much fun. It's been so cool. Right now, again, we have so we're down to donkeys right now, is it? And we have 6 donkeys. So we call it the Ass Ranch. So when you come out, we'll take a picture with the girls and remove the background that says Ass Ranch on it. And, I went to the Ass Ranch. They're amazing though. They're like big dogs. They're so cool. Donkeys are a blast. Yeah, we love them.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that's all the questions I had. I was just, I'm just so excited that I had you on. Thank you for coming on and
anytime. This is a blast.
And I know that you've got things to do, so I will let you go. But maybe we can do it again sometime if you want.
Would be honored. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a blast. This was great.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Brandon. And yes, if I will put your information in the description, and I'll contact you for more information on the psychedelics.
Yeah. Let's talk about that off air. Yeah,
okay.
For sure though. But I definitely have information.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. And
thank you.
Everybody in the audience, thank you for watching. And again, we're going to be back, but this has been great, and I appreciate it. So ciao for now, everyone.